Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's broadcast on Hinduism. My name is Nishit Kochak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy, and we meet every Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. So, if you're watching us from outside the UK, just be careful of the recent time change that we had. Make note of the timings now. We are 1 hour earlier, probably, than what you're used to. But I'll tell you quickly, this broadcast runs for about 45 to 50 minutes. And we generally start off with a focus video, and then we move on to a live Q&A session where we'll be answering your questions live during the broadcast. Now, where can you submit your questions? You can submit them on YouTube at youtube.com/Hindu Academy, or you can do the same on Facebook at facebook.com/Hindu Academy, and I will be monitoring the chats on both platforms. So today's focus video is actually on a theme that we've been following for the past several weeks, and it is to do with pluralism. And a lot of people don't understand what pluralism means. So there has been many misconceptions about Hinduism and saying that you believe in many gods. But actually the concept of pluralism explores how there are many pathways to the same God. And so this is the topic of today, and I'd like to introduce the video before we go into a Q&A session around that. And I will speak to you guys after the video is finished.
Let me finish with one particular parable that he gave, Keshav Chandra Sen. And you see the power of this parable and why it's so relevant in modern times. Keshav Chandra says, what is God like? He said, look, let me do a story. There was a chameleon under a tree, living under a tree. Various people used to see the chameleon and they said, one side is red, other side is blue, other side is green. And they couldn't come to any agreement. What is the color of the chameleon? What is its true color? A wise man who used to live under the tree told them, my friends, same chameleon, it is changing colors all the time. In the same way, the same God appears differently to different people and different religions. Same one thing. He has no color of his own. In a way, you color him with the color of yourself. This is the depth of spirituality. Let me touch on this. This is the idea that are going to become incorporated in the theology in this century. At the experiential level, when you experience, all religions meet up. All the prophets I am declaring, and this comes from my master, all the prophets have the same experience. Same experience, same kind of thrilling experience of spirituality. The moment they open their mouths and try and give it verbal expression, because they must express this experience, the moment they open their mouths, they use the framework that they possess to try and give expression to this wonderful spiritual experience. And this particular framework they possess in a way reflects the culture, the society, the history in which they belong. So this marvelous same experience seems to appear different. It comes through in different verbal methodology. Different words are used to give expression to the same experience. Let me just show you. You see Buddha. The spiritual experience he possesses, when he tries to give it expression, he doesn't talk of any God. He talks of enlightenment, just enlightenment. The same spiritual experience, when Christ gets it, what expression does he give? He says, my Father in heaven, like a super personality. The same spiritual experience, variety of different prophets have. Even though the experience is same, the moment they try and give it verbal expression, there is a variation. And the variation are the different religions of the world. This comes from Ramakrishna. So what he says is this is what he told Keshav. He said, Keshav, this ultimate reality is the same. That is absolute. But the pathways that you try and use to reach this ultimate are varied. And all the pathways are relative. They are not absolute. See the powerful teaching. So if any religion claims some absolute status, they have lost the whole plot. The pathway the religion promote to become spiritual, All the pathways are relative because they have to relate to you. They can never be absolute. The destination is absolute, but the pathways are always relative. That is why they are different, and that's why they are not going to kind of sit well.
And there you have it, an interesting topic to explore. And to explore this further, I'd like to call upon my team from Hindu Academy. We got Manish Bhai, Vijay Bhai, and Sita Ben. Manish Bhai, over to you to get started with the discussion.
Thank you, Nishit Bhai. Yes, wonderful to see Jai Bhai explaining through this story of Ramakrishna's parable. And there are a few other parables like this, which explore how our narrow mindset comes into play, and the way we view God is different. And our cultural upbringing and our language, and these things come into play. We see, now we are in Easter time, and the Christians are celebrating Easter, a day of Jesus Christ crucifixion, and then him coming back. And that is vastly different from Hindu, pathways of, different Hindu pathways of Ram, Krishna, and, we got this idea of path of meditation and karma. And there seems to be no connection. We are all different. When we put a video of Sri Ramakrishna experiences Jesus Christ, many people saying that can't be true, he's hallucinating. But this video in a way explains how, different people, when they talk about the experience of God, will differ. Vijay Bhai, could you explain what's happening when these people talking about God? Why is it all so different?
Ken, I think it's a very good question, and I love that video because I always like the idea of how Ramakrishna Paramhans kind of unites everybody together. I think to also remember is that there's this conception that somehow that Hindus kind of don't like Christ per se because of whatever they're doing. It's not true, actually. I mean, if you look at Swami Vivekananda himself, he was a truly magnanimous person. Not only that, I mean, his view of the religion was universal in nature. And I just take a quote from him. I mean, even he kind of admired Christ as a experiential person. And I think vast majority of Hindus have no problem with Jesus Christ per se as a enlightened person. I think the problem that nowadays many Hindus have is because when they package him up, sorry to say, I know it sounds a bit rude, but package him up and sell him commercially and in an aggressive manner, and that in a way is sad because people kind of now don't like Christ anymore in that sense. They see him as a bad person. But as I said, the idea is the experiential nature. I mean, look, the fact is we are all, the whole of humanity is one. You can't say that some humans are like a different species. They're not. They're the same species. So ultimately, what they see, what they experience, cannot be different. So then, how do you reconcile? That's the key thing. Yes, and that's how Ramakrishna Paramas comes and look. Everybody's divine. Everybody's human. The whole everybody in the world is one person. Then surely they must have the same experience. They can't have different experience. It doesn't make sense. To somebody experience something totally alien. He's not alien. He's human. His only thing is that when you have such a wow experience, something intense experience, how do you put into words? And that's where it comes in, yes. And that's where this idea of chameleon comes in. That when you put in words, you're going to use the context the contemporary world you live in, the context of the society you live in, and that's how experience will come out. And the classic example, like in the video, said for example, in the case of Christ, his Father in heaven, yet in the case of Buddha, it's not a personality, it's enlightenment. See. So surely they have, if all human beings are the essence, same source of the divine, and same source of same principle, come from the same principle, surely it can't be different in terms of experience. It has to be the same. It's just that words always limit us. It's a sense. All senses limit us, right? So the words when they come out, they do the best they can to explain. And that's the one absolute beauty about Ramakrishna Paramahansa. That look, he's actually telling us that. And if you can't see that, then I think it's a very sad pity. That's all I can say. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Hindus have a great deal of respect for Christ because they respect him as a God-man and an enlightened individual. And we're pluralistic by nature. So we're like, if that's the path for you, then please do go for it. But please don't convert anybody who is already on their own pathway. Don't try and sort of divert them and get them confused on their own spiritual pathway. And I think, like Vijay was saying, we are limited in the way that we can express something that's so vast and unlimited. We're limited in terms of our language, our mindsets, the context in which we operate. So there's a lot of things which then result in the experience being described in a variety of different ways, in different times throughout history as well. And it's just amazing to think that all of these people have actually touched base with the same ultimate reality, the same amazing experience. And it gives us reassurance. And Ramakrishna is the only person who can actually reassure us through personal experience that they are all leading to the same ultimate reality. Otherwise, up until that point, it was just words. It was just what the scriptures have written. It's just what people have said. It's just hearsay. But here is somebody who's actually gone and said, no, there are a variety of different ways within Hinduism which work. There are other religions which also work, which are nothing to do with Hinduism, such as Christianity and Islam. So it's amazing that people from around the world have been able to touch base in such a variety of different ways.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay and Sita Ben. So continuing on this topic, we received an interesting comment in one of our videos. Devotee saying, in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mam Ekam Saranam Vraja. And they're saying Sri Krishna is the Parbrahma Paramatma. So we should only worship Sri Krishna. What do you say to these people, Sita Ben?
Yes, so the Bhagavad Gita is an all-encompassing text for Hindus. It sort of encapsulates all the aspects of what Hindus believe in. So yes, Krishna is advocated as a deity that we can focus our love and attention on to attain a spiritual experience. But the Bhagavad Gita does talk about other pathways to God, other non-theistic pathways to God, like Karma Yoga, Gnana Yoga, Raja Yoga. It talks about all of those. And it also talks a lot about the nature of the Atman as well. That's why verses from the Bhagavad Gita are read at times of funeral, because it reminds us that, look, the Atman is living inside all of us, and that body has just moved on. It's just the clothes have changed. That person has just moved on, but they are still there. So it does also talk about Atman. It has a theistic angle as well as a non-theistic angle. And even pathways like Karma Yoga, they're not necessarily theistic. They're not believing in God as a personality. They're saying, look, God is in everyone. Our duty is to serve God in humanity, do good things, and offer all the results to God. So it does offer a variety of different approaches, not just Krishna. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think there is, I think, a group of Hindus who believe that when Krishna says that in the Gita that, oh, I am the path, I'm the universe. Actually, Krishna is far bigger than the name itself. Because, Krishna also said in the Gita, whoever comes to me in whatsoever way, I accept thee. The thing is that it depends, because of course some Vedanta scholars believe that Krishna, the whole universe is actually Krishna. It depends how you see the idea of Krishna. Krishna is far more magnanimous in the name. In effect, actually, it's still, in the way I read the Gita, it's still pluralistic. It's not saying that, oh, Krishna is the only way. It doesn't come out like that. If you read it very carefully, it's actually very magnanimous and it's very kind of all-encompassing. So don't get limited that, oh, because I'm a follower of Shiva, then really it's Krishna will not accept. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, don't get confused. So also the thing is that the books, although Gita magnanimous as it is, as Sita said, there's so many pathways it shows. There's not just one pathway. Yeah? So don't get bogged down. Remember, as a Hindu, always try and be universal in your thought and think of all humanity as part of Sanatana Dharma. They may not follow as per se, like the idea of pluralism, but thinking that, keeping kind of, don't ever fall in the trap of kind of compartmentalizing Hinduism like other religions. Don't do that, because we are not that, yes. And it is a habit because every religion is kind of fighting to be exclusive. Somehow we are feeling that we have to be separate. Don't get trapped in that. Despite the pressure you get, think as Sanatana Dharma, which is universal and all-encompassing. Remember that. Just keep that in mind. Yeah, Manish, right?
Wonderful answer there, Sitaben and Vijay Bhai. So staying with that, some people say this is what Krishna says, this is what Christ said, this is what Muhammad said. And if you don't follow them, you will go to hell. So my question is, if a God is, they're saying if the God is limited and will only allow people who follow their part, is that God worth bothering with? Is that God not partial? And why would God send billions of other people who are not following that pathway to hell? Is just want to say that even some Hindus tend to think, oh, if you don't follow this way, you are doomed. What do we say? Vijay Bhai?
Look, that's people do all kinds of carrot and stick kind of game, right? It's not true. Look, God has to be. If you say like, I know in the Quran it's in the very first, all beneficial, all merciful, and then you say that if you don't worship him, he's going to send you to hell. This is just, I mean, if there's hell here and now, in the kind of karma you do and how you live your life, is the best example of hell. Forget looking for hell in some other nether kind of world. I mean, this is something I think even Hindus have done. I know there's some Hindu movements, I won't name them, they say that, oh, if you don't follow our path, this particular avatar, this particular soul incarnate in this particular life, you can forget getting moksha. But if you're good in the next reincarnation, you'll become a follower of my particular sect and achieve moksha. Hey, come on, why didn't they? You don't have to do that, right? Don't ever feel that it's necessary. Look, this is just wrong. I know, to be honest, I've seen many Christian, even Muslim imams I've met who just now kind of stay from the idea that look, it doesn't make sense. I mean, some of these texts I've seen of hell, the way they describe the punishments in hell, is very, very scary. And to be honest, I think that person who wrote the book he needs to see a psychiatrist. Sorry to say that. It's more like schizophrenic. It's bizarre. I mean, like, holding this hot pole, your skin's melting, all kinds of, how can you worship? How can you even think like if you're a person who follows a path of God? It doesn't make sense here. So I would say, please stay away from this idea. I know Hindus have idea of having temporary hells in many scriptures where you say, if you do bad things for X number of years, you go then come back in a lower kind of world. Well, maybe that may be, but again, that's all to do with your karma. But the idea that you burn eternal damnation, that is purely a square carrot and stick idea, just to keep people in line and focused. That's my view anyway. Sita.
Yeah, no, I agree very much. It feels like it's a carrot and stick argument, because there is no way that this ultimate reality, this spirit, can be partial to anybody, regardless of what pathway that you choose or not even choose. You may not be ready to even start a spiritual journey, but it doesn't mean that you're going to go to hell at all. Well, from the Hindu perspective anyway. So this is the thing. The ultimate reality is just like, it's a benevolent spirit that's sort of encompassing everyone and everything. So it's not sort of partial, oh, I like this person, I don't like this person, I'm going to be nice to this person and not nice to this person. It's just the nature of the universe. This is just how things are. And people are progressing in their own particular ways. Maybe they're not even progressing at all yet. Maybe they're not ready to even start that journey. But, we have to sort of keep living our lives until we kind of get to that point that, hang on, I feel like something is missing from my everyday life. And then you start turning towards spirituality, and then you're going to get there at some point. You might get there quickly. You might take a number of lifetimes to get there. Probably all of us take a good number of lifetimes to get there. But there is nothing, God is impartial, or the ultimate reality is completely impartial. So we should never think that.
Wonderful answer there by Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai. So Karan Mungra is asking, different people, why do they follow their own pathway? And you see their religions, sometimes doing wrong in trying to promote themselves. wouldn't the world be a better place if you were just concentrated on righteous living rather than following this path or that path? Sita Ben?
Yeah, I think that's the sort of downfall of, religions and, religious movements, is that sometimes you get so caught up in the dogmas and the rituals and, oh, this should be done and this shouldn't be done, to the point where you lose sight of the spiritual heart of that religion. And then it sort of starts becoming like an indoctrination sort of regime that, oh, the only way that we are living righteously is by sort of trying to convert others or, sort of impose our point of view on other people, which kind of loses sight of the true spiritual depth of that particular religion. So I think it's very important to not focus so much on all the doctrines, dogmas, rituals which surround that religion, which is sort of like a wall that's built up. It creates partition. Just focus on the spiritual heart of every religion, and then you'll realize that actually all of us have got the same spiritual heart in all of the religions. So it's a time to break down all of those barriers which are created by society over hundreds and thousands of years, and just realize that spirituality is the ultimate aim. Vijay Bhai?
No, I think, Sita, you've done really well on that question. You answered pretty well. Yeah, all I can add is quickly is just that, look, don't feel that you do. If you have somebody helps you spiritually or some group helps you spiritually, don't feel that you don't have to go that. But also at the same time, be an individual and think first. It's all I can add on that idea. So yeah, just be rational and think, and focus on the idea of spirituality. Yeah.
Brilliant. So what I'd like to do at this point in time is just remind the viewers that we have got a new way for you to share your questions with us. So there is a link I have put into the chat in Facebook and on YouTube. And the link will lead you to this page here. And this is where we'd like you to submit your questions to us by video. So it should be just a quick one, under 1 minute. And all you have to do is come here. You'll look at this video. It has the instructions of how you will leave the video review. Click this button here. It'll give you a chance to load up a pre-recorded video, or you can record one on the spot. And then we will come back with a question like this. So today's question, this first one, is by Trushar Patel. He is a regular viewer here with us on the channel. And let's just have a quick look at what his question is all about.
Namaste and Hari Om to the Hindu Academy team. My question for everyone, including Jay Uncle's spirit, is it's Trisha, by the way, here from London and Wellingborough. Question is, who coined the term Brahman? We give Brahman the greatest sort of superiority. It's this sort of all-encompassing principle or God principle. So where specifically did the term Brahman come from? Can we please break down the etymology of the word? Thank you, and Jai Shri Krishna. Tisha.
So the question was, where did Brahman come from, or how did that concept originate? Over to the team.
Vijay Bhai?
No, all I can say is this, that I think it's a very ancient term. I mean, again, it's a Sanskrit term. To be honest, I do not know where it actually came from, but it is in the Rig Veda. It's a very ancient term. And it could be called something else in some other part of the world. And it doesn't really matter in that sense. That's what I think. But the idea is very unique thing about Hinduism, the idea of Brahman as a principle. Now, that is very unique. I mean, you see it only in the Indic kind of traditions where you say that the all-encompassing ultimate reality, which comes or expresses, appears as a cosmos. That's in as an idea of a principle, which appears as a cosmos. That's the idea of Brahman. So that's the key term. And I think the unique thing is the distinction we make between the Atman and Brahman, the objective and the subjective. That's a very unique idea. But more than that, I think the etymology of the term, that I'm not sure, I'll be honest with you. Sita?
If I'm not wrong, I think it might be from the Sanskrit root braha, which means cosmic. Brahman is just a way of describing the vast cosmos, really, and in terms of what you'd sort of touch base with when you have that spiritual experience, which is so unbelievably vast, which can't really be put into words. I mean, people from all around the world do try and put it into words, but it's very, very difficult. And the closest that people from the Indian subcontinent got was to describe it was Brahman, which is this kind of idea of it being so vast, so cosmic. But we also do have some other words which we try to use to encapsulate it, but it doesn't really kind of grasp it totally, because language can never really grasp something that's so unlimited. So we use words like asti, pati, and priya. So existence, consciousness, and bliss. So these are some kind of extra words that we also use to describe Brahman. Although it does, I'm sure when you actually have that experience, it doesn't really come close to describing the beauty of it. But that's the best we can do with our limited language.
Fantastic. I think we might take one more, and this one is from Arpit Tyagi. So let me just take that question as well.
Hello, sir. My name is Arpit. I'm from Aligarh, UP, India. So my question is, what is the relationship between religion and politics? Like, should they be separate from each other, or they should be intertwined? And what was the take of Swami Vivekananda on this issue? Please elaborate.
I hate this game.
Thank you.
Right. So the question was, what is the relationship between religion and politics, and what would have, or what was Swami Vivekananda's take on this?
Yeah, I can have a go quickly. First of all, I think, Arpit, in the question you answered, I think one thing, we should replace the word religion with dharma. That's a much better word. Because, there's a big narrative in India at the moment. I have seen that people say that, some parties getting involved in religion and mixing with that religion, this religion. If you listen to the word dharma, then actually India is essentially a spiritual nation. It's always been the case. It is now that the attempt is being made to kind of rip out its spiritual kind of ethos out and make it into a nation that it's not. So if you talk about dharma as an all-encompassing idea of spirituality, then it should be part of India's DNA, really. In that sense, I think they should talk about that, but in the sense, but as a universal concept, not as something to divide people. Then it will not work. But if you take it totally separate, I think we have to get away from this. Is my personal view, by the way. Everybody's view. India should not follow the Western model blindly. They have a religion, the idea. Like even be surprised, even in Europe, Germany are very clear that our nation is based on Christian principles. Even many countries in Europe, they don't maybe follow Christianity per se as a dogma anymore, but they're very, very clear that our religion is based on a Christian ethos. And you'll be surprised, the German main party is called the Christian Democratic Party. They don't afraid to use the word Christian. And in India, people are scared to use the word Hindu. It's really sad. But I think that it should be part of every part of India's field. Doesn't matter politics, science, anything you do, dharma has to be part of our DNA, and that's how it is. And I think part of why India is so messed up now is they've taken this, really the root of India's heritage has been trying to be taken out from that. That's my personal view, but yeah, I'll leave it there. See that you would expand on that. It's not an easy question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, usually you think of religion and politics sort of being at loggerheads all the time, but possibly there could be a way that they can sort of assimilate with each other, in the sense that you can use the ideas from religions like spiritual humanism to sort of infuse into your political strategies and your actions and what you do to support, the local community, the wider world. So all of these ideas can sort of help in the sense that, they kind of inform your practice, the choices that you make as a politician. But having said that, I think it's a very difficult job to be a politician, because you're having to say things that you may not be able to follow through on. So that's the sort of difficulty of politics, is, it's very, very difficult. But hopefully the ideas of religion can infuse into politics and sort of work for the greater good in that sense, because it helps give you a focus. It grounds you to, what's important and what isn't important. So, obviously the money side and all of that is less important than making sure that people are sort of happy and in their communities and living good lives. So I guess in that sense, they can hopefully help each other out.
Wonderful answer there, or to a difficult question, as we put it. A wonderful answer. We got an interesting question from Prasanna Jha. He's saying a question related topic of pluralism. As we see, Adi Shankara is considered to be a greatest propagators of Advaita Vedanta, but many of his poetic works are clearly dualistic. The one like Bhaj Govindam is a clear example in case. How can we explain this? Sitaben?
Yeah, again, this is the thing, is that when you sort of reach that experiential level, all of these sort of demarcations we have of God with form, God without form, they completely fall to the wayside, and they are all ultimately the same thing. So, you know, even if you're a great devotee of God, for example, we have images, you know, for example, of Hanuman, and he's a devout devotee of Sri Ram, but then you have that wonderful image of him opening his chest, and you can see that there is Ram inside. So essentially, at the experiential level, Dvait and Advait merge, and there is no sort of demarcation between them. I guess that these sort of demarcations are useful in terms of, while you are on your spiritual journey, it helps to give you a focus. So depending on your personality and your temperament, you might be very devotional by nature, so Bhakti pathway is the best for you. But then when you get there, you realize that you are ultimately that ultimate, you are God. And then similarly, you know, if you follow the path of Advait, you find that ultimately you like to think of God as personality, maybe. So in that sense, all the demarcations fall away at the experiential level, but they are useful in terms of making that progress and focusing our mind, I think. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, one interesting point I'd like to add about Adi Shankara. You know, it's quite interesting that Prasanna mentioned this idea, because I've talked to some Hindus in India, and they insist that Shankara is Dvait, he's not Advait. And they say, look, he's done this fantastic work called Bhaja Govindam, right? And that he's established so many images in so many temples. That is actually true. But I think I've still seen ultimately Shankara was actually Advait. But he did realize that in many places, the idea of worship of image was also important, because people in that area perhaps were brought up in that tradition. So although he was Advait kind of in his ultimate philosophy, he still was he had no problem with Dvait where it's required. He did that as well. So in that sense, he was fairly open-minded. That's all I can say about Adi Shankara. Yeah.
Wonderful answer that Sitaben Vijay. So that shows actually the pluralism in practice for Hinduism, and a realized person will always understand that different people will follow religion in their own different way, and it depends on where they are and how they are looking at this universal phenomena. So that's how it works, I suppose. We got, let's do some quick fire questions by Sitaben. So first question to Sitaben. When we are in moksha, we merge forever. Aren't we bored then?
That's a very interesting question. I think at that point, like, there's no really concept of time. Like, time is a relative sort of idea. When you're merged with the absolute, there is no sense of time and space and all of that. So they only sort of become relevant in the relative plane, I think. So you are just one with the spirit, and that's the aim of our life, really, is to reach that point.
Okay, another quick question, Vijay Bhai. Kali Yuga dogma, Kalki avatar, can we establish scientific and logical base for? That's not a quick question, but what's take on Kali Yuga?
I think first of all, the idea of Kali Yuga, actually, it's avatar is part of the Purans, by the way. I know many people insist on 10 avatars. It's very popular narrative of Hinduism. But look, Krishna actually mentioned Gita very clearly. I come again and again, yada yada, you know, that famous sloka. Again, whenever I'm required to establish dharma again, there is no limit in the Gita. And by the way, there's so many gurus today who claim that I'm the Kalki avatar. I've heard so many say that I've already come. So, you know, it's all over the place. Well, I'll say that I would say follow the Gita in this case, that whenever it's required, when it's adharma, I come again and again. That's the kind of the best kind of narrative to follow in this case. That's all I can say.
This idea of yuga theory, Sitaben, Satyug, Kalyug, Dwapar Yuga and all that, does it make sense? I mean, we've had people who were doing bad things even in Dwapar Yuga, or even, you know, a story of Ram, very, you know, Rakshasas behaving very badly. Could we say one yuga was better than the other?
I think we have to sort of take this idea of yugas with almost like with a pinch of salt, because they do not come from the scriptures of authority. They are sort of from the man-made texts, which are wonderful, colorful stories. And we just have to remember that, yes, as you say, there were people doing bad things 1,000 years ago or whatever. It doesn't mean that that was like a golden age or whatever. We have to be very careful about what we sort of take literally and what we take, as a colorful story, as a colorful narrative. So yes, there are people throughout the ages who are doing good things, people throughout the ages doing bad things, and we can't sort of polarize certain periods of time as being good or bad. There is the whole universe, the whole world is a mixture of people doing all sorts of things, and we all just have to make our own way to make spiritual progress, I guess.
Okay, quick question again. What mantra do we use when we tying a sacred thread? I think that's Janoi or Moli thing. And why do we tie it? Vijay bhai?
I can't remember the mantras, it's personally sorry to say, but all I can say is that the idea of Janoi is a very good thing. I mean, it's a very one of the some scars we have. The idea of we owe 3 debts to God, to the Guru, and to our parents, which is very true, which you can never be repaid, because what they give you as knowledge for sustenance in this world, in this life, is so critical that you really can't repay. That's one idea. Other idea is, of course, idea of Rajas, Tamas, and 3 gunas, and how to kind of try and conquer this. These are the 3 ideas, gunas. But the whole ceremony is such a powerful ceremony which gives an imprint to tell you, okay, now we are moving into the idea of the education stage. And what you learn here will hold you throughout your life. So you better focus. So the ceremony is a very unique ceremony to actually keep you in that particular mindset and put an imprint that this is the next stage of your life.
Wonderful answer there. We'll take a question from Charmaine. She's saying Kriya Yoga. So I think it was proposed by Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, and coming from Yukteswar, his guru. And is considered to be lightning part, or fastest part. Why is it considered that? And again, this would be relative, is it not? Vijay bhai?
I think the idea of, I've heard of the Kriya Yoga as well, yes. It's very unique. And I think it's very right for many people. But I think as he promoted it, Yogananda, that's the fastest part. But I guess maybe not for everybody, but to him it was the fastest part if we chose it. That's all I can say in this case. But it's a very unique and a very interesting part, yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think it is time we get back to another one of our quick page videos. We have a video here from one of the viewers. It's called Bopana. Let me just share this. Bear with me.
Hi, I hail from Karnataka, Bengaluru, where most of children, so particularly young children, study in English medium school. They hardly know anything about their own mother tongue or any regional language where they stay. Not only students, everybody here thinks English is the superior language. They feel embarrassed or shy to speak in their own mother tongue. How to make them understand that one must feel proud of and talk proudly in their own mother tongue? How to bring them out of such inferior complex?
Okay, so the question was more related to how to encourage the youngsters of today to converse in their mother tongue. I'm sure, even though he's in Karnataka, we have the same issue here in London. It's no different, and I think it's the same anywhere around the world. So maybe we could tie this in with, yes, language is one thing, but let's just tie it in with the broader concept of how to make the youngsters relate to not only the language, but the religion or concept of Hinduism, because even that they're disconnecting with.
Shall I?
Yeah, I should have a go. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is very difficult because we're living in, diaspora. So we're living in all over the world. We're living in different countries, but also there's the historical angle to it as well. We've had this whole colonial empire, really, and English has just become the universal language. Even the universal culture has become Western culture. Like we're all wearing Western clothes. Like I barely wear Indian clothes anymore. So this is the thing. Like we're just living in a very sort of different world to what it was, say, 100 years ago. And I think the way that we can sort of make sure we keep linking back with our language, our culture, our tradition, is to right from a young age, make sure that children are exposed to all of these aspects of their Indian heritage. So we try our best to speak to them in their native language. We try and make sure that we practice our religion in our daily life around our children. So we do puja every morning, we meditate, we take them to the temple. All of these things are so important. And for example, Vijay Bhai is very much involved in the Saturday classes my daughter goes to as well. It's very important that they have this link back with their tradition, which is in a way sort of in addition to what they're studying at their school, which is everything is in English. They learn about all the sort of different traditions, but that's kind of tokenistic. They need to have a deeper understanding of their religion and culture through sort of the efforts of the parents, I guess. We just have to put in that extra effort to make sure that they link with their religion and tradition and language, because if you start too late, then they're just not going to be interested. They're already sort of closed off. So right from an early age, I think that's very important. It's a challenge for all of us, but we have to try our best. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. And also I'm a bit sad because, South India, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra, they have produced some really great scholars, yes, in their own respective traditions. And if you lose that, I think it'll be a huge loss, not only for Karnataka or any particular state, it'll be a huge loss for India. Look, it's very easy. I'll tell you, I can read and write 3 languages. I think Sita even more. She does Sanskrit as well. The point is this, look, it's easy to learn 3 or 4 languages. It's not hard. If you just said, oh, I only know English and I'm going to be, I'm better off, that just won't fly. I think as Sita said, we have to accept reality. India has been conquered for over 1,000 years. We are still, I'll be honest with you, I've talked to some people from India, even in the UK. It may sound a bit harsh, but I think they still suffer from this idea of passive colonial mentality. They somehow still don't get this. The Indian heritage is kind of despairing. And all I would say is, as Sita said, please, some of you get together in Karnataka and open up a Saturday class, teach them Kannada, teach them about the great scholars, the great mystics of Karnataka. And please try as much as you can preserve that. The benefit is not only that you learn your culture, you can actually think in different lateral ways. That's a very powerful skill to have when you go out in the real world. And that's how, to be honest, that's how I actually even sometimes promote Hinduism classes here when they come. And so what we learn about Hinduism, I'm already learning science, mathematics, and always play this trick on them. Look, if you learn about Hinduism, you would open your mind up in a different way of thinking. And you actually ultimately benefit. And, oh, okay, then I will come. So you have to do something or the other to get people in. But yeah, it's a big effort. But I'm glad. I think there are some very nice shoots coming out in India. I can see there's some green shoots coming out. People are now thinking about the heritage, the culture, more so after 70 years of independence. And that's a very good thing. All I would say to the question, I think Bopana who asked the question, please make your own effort to try and promote your own culture and tradition. Because although I'm from Gujarat, I would really hate it. I would really be depressed to see that Karnataka's culture is disappearing. So try what you can in small ways to get a small class, run it 1 or 2 hours and teach about the greatness of your Karnataka and Kannada culture. That's all I can say to that. Yeah. Manish bhai.
Wonderful answer, Asita Ben Vijay Bhai. So continuing on, there is a responsibility on parents and you have to spend that time with children to make sure that they get this cultural background and religious background that is so important, and that will give them a firm footing and a belief in themselves as well. If they are going to an English medium school, which is teaching them something completely different from what their cultural background is, isn't that creating confusion in their minds? And would it not be better if we have Hindu schools where these things are taken more structurally and we teach them about it in more hopefully open manner, which they can relate to? Vijay Bhai?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. Not that easy to answer, but I'll give you an example. When I used to work in Germany, and they learn everything in school in German. And I always thought maybe it's a disadvantage, they don't know English, but actually they pick up English fairly quickly. and they can still converse and do everything in. I mean, they've done all the sciences, mathematics, everything in German language. Yet when it comes to converting English, they're quite quick. Within a year or so of learning proper English, they can do that. So the idea that somebody thinks that if you go to say a local school in India of a local language and learn everything local, and then eventually, oh, you will actually struggle. You won't. Okay, it's true that you have to learn English in this day and age because it's kind of a global language. But don't. I think the Indian narrative is a bit different somehow. Yes, that somehow if you go to an English medium school, you have much better advantages. That narrative has somehow got to change. Okay, English is very important. You must be able to speak good English, but you can actually start from a different kind of school in a different language and still learn English. I know that, for example, I think my wife went to a Hindi expatriate school, yes, and she speaks fairly good English now, and she does fairly good accounts. So I think both are possible. I think we shouldn't weigh the idea of too much on the English medium and totally forget your own narrative. So I can't really say for sure, but if you have schools in your own language, there's nothing wrong in that, I think. And it might be benefit because India needs to get the vast amount of villages out of their, out of the village and get them educated. And that's what the best perhaps point is to start with, because everybody loves the local language. So you can just expand local language and grow it, incorporate the idea of science, math, and then continue from there. So it's a sad situation. I think people only English and nothing else. I don't kind of personally agree with that. Yeah, but it's not an easy question to answer, Sita.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered it. I mean, I can only speak from the perspective of English schools because that's all that I know, is that I feel like the English education system does give that openness of thinking to children. It makes them question everything in a way, to the point where parents are like, we don't know how to answer this. So they do sort of, give them that sort of confidence to ask, why are we doing this? Why is it like this? Why is this religion like this? And this religion is like that. So they do actually encourage us to compare and study different types of religions, different spiritual backgrounds and all of that. And I think especially in terms of the language, that's where we sort of struggle in the UK, because everything is in English. And, there's no way around it. We're living in England. So we have to sort of make that extra effort in terms of the language as well, to make sure that we sort of try and make our children at least bilingual, to, make sure they are fluent in their own native language, Gujarati or Hindi or whatever it is. So we have to make that extra effort, and also make the extra effort of sort of embedding the deeper spiritual ideas into our children. If you're from a Hindu background, then we've got a vast, array of wonderful spiritual teachings, which are not just useful academically, just say, I know my religion, I can tick myself as a Hindu, I know what to do. But really, it can hold your hand in difficult times in later life, because life is not straightforward. There are going to be difficult times that come at you. And having that sort of spiritual foundation gives you something to hold on to during those very difficult times. So it makes you a more rounded person, it gives you balance, and it gives you structure. So I think it's invaluable.
Wonderful answer there, Sita-Ben. G1P is asking, is there any specific way you should conduct yourself to become a better Hindu, Sita-Ben?
Just to sort of follow the path that suits you the best, I think. If you like to think of God with form, focus your life on devoting yourself to that particular form of God. Every action you do, make sure you devote it to that particular form of God, and make that the central focus of your life. There's this wonderful teaching from Sharada Devi. If you sort of keep holding a flower, keep handling it, eventually the scent will rub off onto you. So having those constant spiritual thoughts is going to rub off on you, and you are going to make progress. Or, if you don't necessarily like to think of God with form, you like to think of God in humanity, even better, just do lots of good work for the people around you. Expand the circle of who you call your own, not just your immediate family, your neighbors, your community, the wider world. Try and do whatever you can to support those around you, because the essential sort of message I feel of spiritual living is to not focus on yourself. Make sure you live for others, and that's truly spiritual living, whatever religion you come from. Vijay Bhai?
I think they have covered it. Classic Vivekananda. He's just spoke. So yeah, that's it. I have no more to add on that. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Sita. Then that's great to hear. So one difficult question is how to cope when someone in family commits suicide. This happened to Vivekananda as well. One of his sister committed suicide. Vijay Bhai, how to cope?
It's not easy. I'll be honest with you. It's very, very tough. But I think the thing is that it can happen to anybody. One thing we should not do is criticize or say, oh, why did they do that? Because we never understand somebody's circumstances. Of course, we have many tools to strengthen ourselves and our families. And one way is, of course, religion, your dharma, to use that to give people strength and make them realize actually life is worth living no matter what situation you're in. The way I see it, I mean, I know once Jay Bhai was teaching in class and somebody asked me something similar. He said that even if you can do just one little good thing, something even the tiniest good thing, like throw a bird a seed to eat, life is worth living. Yeah, don't ever feel that just because everything is ganging up on me and I really have not nowhere to go, my prestige, my whatever is my life, the way I see things. I mean, people don't want me anymore. Okay, if nobody wants you anymore, the universe still wants you. There's so much life out there, nature still wants you. And I think that's the kind of thought process that you should try and instill in everybody, even when my own children are trying to send that. Of course, when you're in a situation, you don't think like that, do you? So what I would say is that get strength from your family, from whatever pathway you follow, Hindu pathway, pathway of devotion you follow, and try and get strength for you to come out of the situation. Don't worry too much of what people think about your family. They might say, oh, look at his family. Just close your self mind and only take in positive thoughts. And the one thing to remember is only listen to those people who are actually helping you. There's so many people who are not actually helping you indirectly. And it's a very, very tough situation. But try and get positive stuff from everywhere to give you that strength. But look, as I said, that sometimes life can throw so many things at you. I can just speak here for myself and level words. It's not happen to me. But when it happens to you, it really hits you. So use all the strength of all kinds, and in particular your dharmic faith, to really give you strength on that. Yeah, Sitaben.
Yeah, I can't even begin to imagine how difficult life would be for somebody to do something like that. I guess we just have to remember what the law of karma teaches us. We are in this particular situation. Committing suicide, unfortunately, doesn't solve that problem. So you have to sort of stand up from where you are, even though it's really, really difficult. Be strong and face up to the challenges that you're having to deal with, and you'll come out stronger at the end of it, because if you just commit suicide, you might just be deferring your problems to the next life. So although it's extremely difficult, and I can't even begin to imagine what it would be like, we have to try and be as strong as we can. As Vijay Bhai was saying, draw our strength from our family, our community, our God, if we believe in a particular form of God, and do the best we can to come out of that situation.
Right, so we are almost at the top of the hour. We will be closing very shortly. I'll ask one last question. This was posed by Lakshmi Narayan Pandey over on YouTube. And the question is, would you be able to describe the 6 darshanas of Hinduism?
It's very, very quick, short time. But the 6 darshanas is a very, very amazing. It's only very, very kind of Hindu idea. So of course we have the Astik darshan, the Nastik darshan. So the Astik darshans we have the Nyaya, the Vaisheshika philosophy, which is the Nyaya is the logical idea, which is the atom idea. Everything is made from atoms. These are 2 main top logical ones. And then the second group we have is the idea of the Sankhya darshan, which is fantastic. I'm really a fan of Kapil Muni. Then we have Sankhya darshan goes with the idea of yoga, because Sankhya is a theory and yoga is the practical aspect of yoga, of the theory, which is yoga, which is Patanjali. Then you have the Mimamsa, which is more like the Arya Samaj, which is ritualistic. And the last one you have this Vedanta. And Vedanta has got again 7 schools of thought, philosophical thought, which is the Advait, Advait, Vishnadvait, Shuddha Advait, Dvait, Advait, and it just goes on. So we can't give you a big, but what I can say is that this shows the grandness and the vastness of Sanatana Dharma. And I bet you any belief in the world can fit in all this particular idea. It's fantastic. And the idea is that even the darshans we have, the asik purely means, doesn't mean you believe in a God. It purely means that you accept either directly or indirectly the authority of the Vedas. That's all astik means. You can still believe in a principle or no God at all. And then the Nastik darshan, which actually reject the Vedas, which is of course, maybe 3 or 4. You have the Ajivikas, you have the Buddhists or Jains, but still part of the all-encompassing dharma. So Avanambala is very vast. Then you have Astik, Nastik, 6 darshans, 3 darshans on this side. So it's a very big thing. Remember this is the beauty of Hinduism, that we have this grand, magnanimous freedom of thought. Nobody was prosecuted born on the cross, remember, for saying all these things. And that's why we should really be proud to be Hindu. That's what I can say.
And there's nothing much more I can add. You've basically covered it.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for covering that vast topic in a very precise manner. What I'd like to say is now we'd like to close for today. Before I go, just look in the chat of the YouTube or Facebook again, and you will find the link to our quick page app where you can go and submit your video questions. So please do send in your questions for next week, and the best 3 or 4 of them will be selected to be shared live on air. And the last thing I want to share is a quote from Swami Vivekananda before we close. Today's topic was about pluralism, how there are many pathways to the same destination. I want to tie it back to see this. This quote goes, where can we go to find God if we cannot see Him in our own hearts and in every living being? This goes to show you that no matter what differences we have, however many viewpoints that we've got, but your fellow man is just your fellow man. You are born into a family, you're born into a way of life. If you were born into something else, you would be believing in something else. So let me tell you, at the end of the day, we are all the same. We're just human beings. And so embrace that. And I would say stop, I would say maybe taking things too far in the name of religion and just embrace humanity as a whole. So thank you once again. And I'd like to say thank you to my team here over at Hindu Academy for doing a fabulous job every week of answering your questions live on air. Do we meet every person's expectations? Possibly not, but that's the beauty of it. We don't have to agree on everything, and you're free to explore your own pathways. We just provide one perspective, which is our perspective. And I hope that you find it useful as well. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Saturday at 2 o'clock as usual.